Micha, please tell us a bit about yourself and about your activity.
Okay, my name is Micha Kurtz. As you said, I was born and raised in Jerusalem, mostly on the west side of Jerusalem. I never actually really got to see the east side of Jerusalem too much. Just like any normal Israeli kid these days, I went to the army for almost 3.5 years. And after the army, I co-founded an organization called Breaking the Silence. Today I work on a project that's called Grassroots Jerusalem. It's a project that maps the different grassroots organizations in and around Jerusalem, Palestinian and Israeli or international, organizations that deal with environmental issues, sustainability issues, along with human rights and justice and protest. The idea is to introduce this community as one community localized in Jerusalem, and to help connect those dots so that we can use our resources in a more efficient and effective way.
Okay. You started by saying that, like every other Israeli youth, you joined the military, but then you ended up somewhere very different and somewhere quite unusual to most Israeli youth, founding an organization that brings forth a different reality of occupation and of reality in the West Bank. What happened there?
Well, growing up in West Jerusalem, to a couple of parents that did not agree with the occupation, I didn't get to see it much. I didn't know what was going on. Like most Israelis today that don't have the opportunity to go to drive through either a Palestinian refugee camp, or even drive through the occupied territories, I didn't know much about what was going on. And the first time I actually was exposed to any of it was in the army. And I went to the army gung-ho. I was very proud. I was very patriotic. It was what I knew I was going to the army since the 3rd grade. And I was very motivated until our first assignment, which was the first assignment was to stand guard the first shift in Hebron, in Khalil, and we ended up. I think what was the first assignment was I was standing around bored at a post, and there was a ruckus coming from the marketplace, and I ran over to see what was going on, and it turned out that there were 4 large Jewish settler women walked out of the settlement and were smacking around Palestinian shopkeepers and shoving things off the shelves. And I was shocked. This is what, I mean, really? This is what's going on? And since our orders were to go and, to keep the peace no matter what's going on, we went ahead with friends to stop them. But our orders were also very clear that we're not allowed to touch the women. So I found myself running around and chasing these women, and they're yelling at me to get out of their way because they're doing what they need to be doing, and it all ended with a woman who had fainted on one side of the road and a Palestinian shopkeeper with a broken nose on the other side of the road, and we all just looked at each other and realized, oh, this is what we're here to do. We're here to protect the Palestinians, actually. And over the next long time in service, it took a while to actually realize that this is the reality that's going on in the occupied territories. That it's the Palestinians that need protection, not the settlers. And the settlements are a land grab. And by the time we got out of the army, it became more and more obvious that people around mainstream Israel that live in the 48 lines don't really know what's going on. And it was clear that it was our job. It was time that people knew what was up, and to tell the story from the soldier's perspective. That it's not politics. This is what's going on at checkpoints. This is what's going on daily in the occupied territories, and to explain and to uncover the effects on ourselves, on soldiers, on Israeli society.
I wonder, you say Well, every military service is mandatory in Israel, and yet you say that Israelis don't know the reality of what soldiers do in the West Bank. How do you understand this? How do you understand the fact that even though the vast majority of Israeli society goes through the military not knowing what is being done in the West Bank and Gaza?
I think there's a lot of when we'd go home when we'd come home from the army on leave every 3 weeks, it was kind of like when you come home from school and your mother asks, how was school, and you say, oh, it was okay, and they go, oh, that's it? And we go, yeah, that's okay. There's no way I'm going to start telling her what we did to Palestinians that week, or how it was on the shifts, or what it's like to shoot a grenade launcher into a neighborhood across the hill, what the demonstrations are like, or what it's like to shoot rubber bullets into a protest of 13, 14-year-old children. That reality stays in the army. It stays in the occupied territories. It's definitely not addressed in mainstream Tel Aviv. I think a lot of the reality that's been created, the harsh reality that's been created now, I'll bet the occupation has been going on arguably since 48 or since 67. Today's reality that's been developed since the Second Intifada. What we knew in 2000 and 2001 was a harsh explosion of violence all over the country. And the Palestinians, of course, felt it as well. Israel's reaction was to send and deploy as many troops as it can to quieten down the area. And as the years went by in Israel, as far as Israelis are concerned, the Intifada is over and things are quiet now. The reality in the occupied territories that many Israelis, I think, don't realize is that during the past years, since 2001, Israel has created separate roadmaps, has created tens, if not hundreds, of different checkpoints across the occupied territories, and built the wall. It's basically built a cantoned reality that suffocates Palestinian daily life.
What do you mean cantoned reality?
It's separate. It's if someone lives in Shechem, in Nablus, and wants to go visit a doctor or a family or friend in Hebron or Jenin or any other of the major cities in Palestine, they have to go through a grid of checkpoints. It basically makes daily life very, very challenging. And since when we were there, while I was in the army, we were setting up these checkpoints, and we were setting them up as tents, and we were told that these were temporary checkpoints to maintain the harsh violence that was going on. But as time went on, for of course safety reasons, the tents that couldn't protect the soldiers were built up in concrete checkpoints. And today, all the different temporary checkpoints that we set up, either on hilltops or down on the roads, have become concrete passageways. Almost, some of them look like terminals in the airport. And if you need to go through one or two of those a day, you might actually spend 2.5, 3 hours stuck there, and instead of the 15-minute drive it would have taken. The struggle to not get used to that, I think the Palestinians call normalization. To not get used to the reality that Israel has created in the occupied territories. This is a reality that most Israelis have never seen, have never